Well, today is the day. Today is the day that's always the hardest day of the year for me. This is the day where I finally have to rank what I think are the 10 best games of 2016. So you heard right, today is the day that we're going to be discussing what I think the 10 best games of 2016 are. It's very interesting. 2016 is a unique case because I feel like on the surface, 2016 maybe feels like a slow year, where there really weren't a lot of impactful or important games, great games that people have been talking about and capturing our mind share for months and months, and that seem like they might be keeping us interested for years and years. However, when you look a little bit deeper, you actually kind of discover that somehow 2016 became a sneaky good year. And I really discovered that as I went through a list of all the games that I played this year, the games that I wanted to play and didn't get to, which I will discuss at the end of the list, as well as all the other honorable mentions I had. There was actually a lot of good games. It became tough for me to whittle it down to 10, and then even more than that, it became harder to actually order those 10 games. However, beyond just that struggle, as a super diehard Nintendo fan, you know the other struggle that I had to deal with this year, which is that really Nintendo didn't have a whole lot going, at least on the home console Wii U front, which is very sad. They did release some games, some really good games. I won't spoil this list yet, but it was really interesting as we kind of had the last fading year of the Wii U with really not a lot of content coming from Nintendo, and that's really strange for me as a fan. We're all waiting for the Nintendo Switch. We're a couple of weeks away from that reveal, and it's going to be great. I am super massive pumped. But for now, when looking back on this past year, there really wasn't a lot of Nintendo content, and that really seems strange and kind of uncomfortable. However, I still found a great list of some awesome games to put together. One last amendment before I get going: Twilight Princess HD. Now, this title I've decided not to include on this list, given the fact that I'm a huge Zelda fan, and honestly, I think Twilight Princess, I love it so much, it's probably a game I prefer over all 10 games that are going to be on this list, but since this was a remaster, and a remaster with really not a lot of new content, I decided to just totally not include it. So it was not a factor on this list, but I didn't want to leave it out of the conversation to make sure everyone knew that I played it this year again, and that I thought it was great. I loved what Nintendo did with it. However, it does not qualify for this year's list of 2016 games. But now I'm going to shut up and get going. We're going to start off, you guys, with what I think is the 10th best game of 2016. And coming in today at number 10 is Monster Hunter Generations for the 3DS. So, not a whole lot to say here. I'm a Monster Hunter maniac. I freaking love Monster Hunter. I've been a huge fan for years. The last several entries have really been interesting to me and my group of friends who we play together online all the time. And Monster Hunter Generations was really nothing more than just another great entry in that series. Now, I do have to say, I don't think it's nearly as good as Monster Hunter 4 was last year. Monster Hunter 4 felt like a kind of a bigger step and a bigger leap in the gameplay functionality and your interaction with the world and the story to previous Monster Hunter games. Generations, as much as it kind of builds on what Monster Hunter 4 did well, in a weird way, it kind of took a couple of steps back. So that's why I don't really consider it as good as that game. What I will say is the combat is intact and as good as ever. It's faster than ever. They kind of streamline the experience so that there's not such a barrier of entry with the complication of how you upgrade, how you craft, how you find and exchange items, and how you build and improve your stats, as well as just buying and selling materials. They really improved and streamlined that and made it a little bit easier for new players to get into, and I really, really appreciate that. You know, when all is said and done, it's just another great Monster Hunter game, and as a huge fan, I still find it to be the 10th best game that I played this year. Coming in at number 9 is probably going to be the most controversial game on this list, and the game that I struggled with the most, and that is Star Fox Zero. Yeah, a Wii U game, Star Fox Zero, check it out. So in any other year, with any other new Star Fox game, you can bet that it's very likely I would have put this game at number 1. However, what we're dealing with here is Star Fox Zero, which, as we all know, is a much different experience and a much different Star Fox game than we were waiting for these past 10 years. Now, I will say, I love the game. That's why it's on this list. Even if it's at number 9, it's still a game that I included on this top 10, and I love it so. Star Fox is one of my favorite series and franchises. Star Fox 64, probably a top 10 game for me. I really, really think that there's a lot of potential and opportunity still for the series going forward. Star Fox Zero did a lot of great things. I like the implementation of the new control scheme, and I like that it kind of went back to basics in terms of the actual mission structure and game structure. And I liked the art style and what it did visually overall, so I really think that the game was fantastic. Obviously, the fact that there was no option for regular controls was a negative for a lot of people. I don't mind it, but I do think it should have been included. For me, the bigger drawback was the lack of an online or multiplayer mode. I cannot fathom why that didn't happen. But if I look outside of those boxes and I look away from those two problems, I still found a very enjoyable Star Fox game. Yes, it was a retelling of Star Fox 64, which really wasn't what we should have had with our first new Star Fox game in so long, but I feel like the release cycle, the production cycle, what Miyamoto and Platinum were doing, as well as the time that this game released in the Wii U's life, I think led to a couple of odd choices that are too unfortunate for other people, but I still found a really great Star Fox game, you guys. The heart and soul of what I want a Star Fox game to be was still intact. I worked through the learning curve of the controls and found something that can be fairly euphoric on the right missions once you actually tune in to what the game wants you to do. And I can assure you guys, if you spend the time, it does work. It's just a really steep learning curve, probably steeper than it needs to be. But at the end of the day, I still loved it. I got my Star Fox, I got my great R-Wing action, and I can't really complain about that. And even with its issues, I still love the game. So here we go. Star Fox Zero is my 9th favorite game of this year. Coming in at number 8 is the straightforward and super badass Titanfall 2. So, wow, this game surprised me. I was very excited for the first Titanfall. I played it a year later and still really liked it. It wasn't what I wanted, but I did still definitely enjoy it more than anything I saw potential. Titanfall 2 fixed all the problems I had with that game. The multiplayer and online action was better than the first games, and more than anything, it gave us a legit, solid, single-player focused campaign. Thank you so much, EA, for listening to fans and including that, and I gotta tell you, it helped me. I thought the campaign, while unimportant and uninteresting story-wise, was a great collection of missions that let us do a lot of really interesting things, and it, more than anything, just took advantage of the kick-ass combat that Titanfall has created. And that's what I love. I love first-person shooters, you guys. I just will say I have a soft spot for that genre. It's not like revolutionary anymore, and it certainly isn't pushing any bounds within the context of video games. But as far as just mindless fun, I love a really good first-person shooter experience. So Titanfall 2 nailed it, and the online kind of arena is great. I really love what the multiplayer allows us to do too. So Titanfall 2 far exceeded my expectations. I'm very thankful for a very fun single-player campaign. So kudos to EA for that. And you don't hear a kudos given to EA very often. So I will proudly say it when it comes to Titanfall 2, you guys. I thought Titanfall 2 was super awesome. And our number 7 game for today is going to be Deus Ex Mankind Divided. Wow, this is another game that really shocked and surprised me. I really enjoyed Deus Ex Human Revolution, the previous game. I thought that it was a really good step forward in that series and in the first-person kind of stealthy, futuristic genre. Really interesting morality tale being told in this kind of newer era of Deus Ex where, you know, the ability to augment yourself is something that a lot of people look down on, and there's a really interesting sort of duality happening and a moral choice that people are sort of dealing with in this world that's very Blade Runner meets Fifth Element kind of style. And I think that it's a lot of fun to get involved with that kind of gray area tale that is being told in this series. Mankind Divided took it to another step, took it to another evolution, and provided a really awesome world that feels so real and lived in. This world of Prague is like if you were to visit Prague in the Star Wars era of the original trilogy, where it's this crazy future that feels lived in. And that was the revolution with the original Star Wars films, and that's kind of what Deus Ex Mankind Divided is doing. And I loved the world of Prague that they created and the story that Adam Jensen has to deal with throughout. I thought that the gameplay and the context of the world was vastly improved over Human Revolution, a game that I really enjoyed. And it's just one of those games that spoke to me. It made me enjoy stealth when I typically don't enjoy stealth, and I think that's a big deal. So yeah, I mean, Deus Ex Mankind Divided, totally rad. And coming in today for number 6 is going to be the other surprise, Watch Dogs 2. I really enjoyed Watch Dogs. Very polarizing, controversial kind of series and release that first game was, as we all know. I, of course, waited for the Wii U version of the game. Yes, the Wii U version. And by the time it came out, I loved it. Not because the Wii U version was great, just because the world and the idea that they were trying to tell ended up being really interesting to me. And I appreciated the idea, and it was just a big, fun, open-world game in an era where I'm getting completely sick of open-world games. Watch Dogs 2 is probably the best open world I've ever experienced. They recreated San Francisco very carefully, and I really enjoyed it. It's a huge map, and the game is both really complicated and also surprisingly simple in its delivery. And I've talked about this before. The main character you play is really fantastic, has a lot of personality. And then there's also your dead set compadres. There's a group of 5 of you, and every single one of them is very interesting. They have their own personality. They crack a lot of jokes. They feel very natural, like young people dealing with this hacker kind of society. And then the missions are great. The combat's fantastic. The stealth is wonderful. And it's an extremely polished game. It's one of the most polished games I've played in a very long time. And I've really just had a blast running through those worlds, doing missions and dealing with these characters and interacting with the world and the city of San Francisco. It's great, you guys. I don't know what else to say. Watch Dogs 2, really huge surprise. I hope that more people pay attention to it because it's a really sweet game. At number 5 for today is Fire Emblem Fates. Now, I have to admit, and maybe this is why the game is only at number 5 and not higher on the list, as a huge Fire Emblem fan, that I've only been able to play through Birthright. I have not played through Conquest, or is it Revelations, I think was the other third DLC. I haven't played through any of that stuff, so really my inclusion on this list is based only on one of those 2.5 experiences that makes up Fates. But it's amazing, you guys. Birthright is a spectacular experience. I like how it gives you the choice of which city and which family you want to be a part of and defend. There's another, just like Deus Ex, there's kind of a morality tale on which side of these warring factions you want to really kind of fall in line with and believe and agree with their fundamentals and their ideals. I think it's really cool. But let's get down to brass tacks. It's the combat and the strategic element that make this game amazing. Now, Awakening was great, and most people will tell you they think Awakening is the better game, and I might even agree with that. But I'm going to tell you guys, I feel like I had more fun with the combat and the actual battles in this game. Maybe it's because I was so attached to the tale of the 2 families and the 2 warring factions, or maybe it's just because I was so excited to have Fire Emblem back. It took me so many months to finally pick up Birthright. My girlfriend actually got it for me for my birthday, thank goodness. She totally nailed it with that one. And yeah, I don't know, you guys, Fire Emblem is just this amazing series that keeps going and going. In my opinion, it keeps getting better and better. I love the idea of the 2 stories of Fates and that how Nintendo chose to release the game. Some people took issue with that. I think it's really intriguing. And having played through Birthright and enjoyed it so much, I'm really excited to finally go back and play Conquest, because it's like, wow, I love this game, but I have a whole nother version of this tale to play through that's going to fully color and complete my Fire Emblem Fates experience. And that makes me really excited, but even still, having played only half of it, I can say it's so good, I can include it here at number 5. Alrighty, creeping up the list here at number 4. I really struggled with where to put this game. It jumped a lot. It jumped around a lot, I should say, on my list before I finally included it here. And number 4 is going to be Gears of War 4. So I'm a huge Gears of War fan. You've probably heard me talk about it. I think the series, it's nice and simple and straightforward. It's just gory, bloody Gears, crazy action. And I love the series for that. The first one was a revolution for me. I was so in love with that first Gears of War. It's one of my absolute favorite games I've ever played. And the series, while it's never been as good as that first game, it's still been very strong throughout. Gears of War 4 is the first official next-generation Gears of War game since the 360, and I gotta tell you, they delivered. And at first I was like, well, it's great, but I don't know if it really delivered on what I wanted to be. But I've thought about it a lot since. I've compared it to the other games on this list and the other games of the year. And when I went back and started playing through the multiplayer even more, I had kind of a resurgence. And now I'm aching to play through the campaign for a second time. I realized, you know, the game really is that good. It's a wonderful, wonderful game. It tells a really cool story, you know, evolving what's happened many decades since the Locust War ended at Gears of War 3. And we're playing as Marcus Phoenix's son and this whole new group of people. Marcus Phoenix, as we all know, eventually gets involved. This older version. The COG are kind of seen as both like the good and the bad guys in this newer future. They've kind of taken over, and now you're sort of fighting against them. And it's just a really cool tale they told with the story. And it's typically polished. The online is amazing. The best it's been, I think, since the first game. So I don't know what else to say. I'm a Gears of War fanboy, and I think Gears of War 4 was excellent. Okay, the top 3 are unique. One could almost say, and this was the same with my last video as well, that these top 3 games, you could almost argue, are kind of all number 1. But even more than that, I feel like it's number 3 and number 2 that I had the biggest problem with, and I struggled the most to put in order of numbers 2 and numbers 3. It was really, really difficult. So kind of think, I want you to look at numbers 2 and 3 as kind of interchangeable, because I really struggled to kind of figure out how I wanted to come down on. And at the end of the day, this is what I settled on. So at number 3 is Uncharted 4. So I love Uncharted. It's one of my favorite series of all time. Uncharted 2 is one of my favorite games of all time. Nathan Drake, one of my favorite video game characters of all time. And with Uncharted 4, I think I can confidently say that they've crafted their best Uncharted yet. Even better than Uncharted 2 to me, personally. And also, I really didn't like Uncharted 3, so coming off of that, it was really nice to see them come back and make the Uncharted experience that I've been waiting for. And I mean, there's not a lot to say about it. Nathan Drake is typically fantastic. We get Sully back. I think he's wonderful. The inclusion of Sam, Nathan's brother, was a weird kind of element to introduce when we were seeing the game previewed. But now that I've played through the game, experienced Sam as a character, see what his relationship with Nathan is and how we get these flashback scenes with them as kids, it just gave this whole new element to Nathan as a character and also fleshed out Sam as somebody who I really, really enjoyed, and he only aided the Uncharted experience. Yes, the Uncharted games are very linear, and yes, there's a lot of kind of scripted moments, but Uncharted 4 struck the perfect balance, and it gave me something so exciting and enjoyable, and when I started this game, I was like, oh my god, I just miss having a game that's just a straight line of a really interesting story, of characters that I care about, and great action, and beautiful graphics. And make no mistake, even with the scripted events, there is a ton of gameplay in Uncharted 4, and it's the best the gameplay's ever been. I mean, I really don't have a single complaint about Uncharted 4. And don't even get me started on the ending, which was so good. What a wonderful, touching, and picture-perfect way to end this tale, to end the Nathan Drake saga and story, and set up a potentially interesting future for the series if they wanted to go that route. I love what they did. It was perfectly emotional. And it was everything I wanted from someone who loves the Uncharted series and loves what Naughty Dog has done with the character of Nathan Drake. So, Uncharted 4, it could have been number 1. It was almost number 2, but at the end of the day, it's number 3. All right, so here we are at number 2, the game which was basically interchangeable with number 3. And I'm almost running out of good things to say about video games, you guys. It's really been that kind of a year. It's been surprisingly fantastic. So at number 2 is a game that for a long time actually was my number 1. And that is going to be Doom. Yes, the resurgence, the mighty return of Doom. Now, I am old enough to have played the first Doom when it was brand new and had my frickin' 12-year-old balls blown off by how incredible that game was back when the first-person perspective was brand new. And Dooms 2 and Doom 3, those are all great games. The Doom series is really, really spectacular. Very special to me as a gamer who's been gaming for that long, to have experienced it when it was brand new. So when Doom was coming back, it was a really exciting thing. We saw that first trailer from Bethesda last year's E3, and I was like, whoa, they did it. I think they did it. They made Doom work again. And then the game came out, and it was even better than I ever could have expected. And here's the reason why it's better. And it's the perfect juxtaposition for Uncharted 4 at number 3. Whereas Uncharted 4 is mostly story and emotions and character experiences, Doom is nothing but gameplay. They give you the slightest amount of context. You're on Mars, shit's going down, here's a gun, kill everything. And there are so many times where from a gameplay perspective and a video game perspective, that's all I ever want. And I love the simplicity of that. Here's a gun, fuck everything up. Just rip heads apart for the next 12 hours, you're welcome. That's what Doom did, and it did it perfectly. It did it so well. The gameplay is so fast and frenetic. And it's also surprisingly deep. There's a lot of strategy because you don't have to reload, you don't have rechargeable health, and you have the ability to do these instant kills that are both really viscerally satisfying and also keep you in the action, reload your health and your ammo if done correctly, and they make it so you can be the perfect killing machine if you're good at it. It's a skill to learn, and it's perfectly implemented in this crazy fast-paced, balls-out action that is Doom. And then, of course, it's visual. It runs at 60 frames. It's visually impressive, I should say. It runs at 60 frames per second. The Mars atmosphere is just really fantastic. Of course, you go to Hell, and Hell's always a fun place to visit. I mean, am I right? And I don't know what else to say, man. Doom is great. The music is great. I love the industrial metal experience. I know that Slayer and Metallica and Pantera were influences, and I'm a heavy metal guy. Those are some of my favorite bands of all time. So really, at the end of the day, I have nothing to complain about when it comes to Doom. I mean, I don't want to leave this part out. What's really neat about how they crafted the world of Doom is how there's a lot of exploration, and I've kind of likened the game to a cross between Dead Space and Gears of War and Metroid Prime. If you took all three of those game experiences and put them into one, that's pretty much what this new Doom is, Doom 4, if you want to call it that. And that's amazing. Those are some great series. It's scary, it's beautiful, it's bloody, it's first person, it's explorative. There's a lot of secrets to find, there's a lot of upgrades to get. There is a crazy amount of content, and I never even touched the online, you guys. Forget the online stuff. I just love that incredible campaign. Doom was a wonderful surprise, better than it had any right to be, and I am so thankful for that game. And so, here it sits at number 2. And at number 1 is a game that if you know me, you already saw it coming. And this game jumped up this list the last couple of months as I started getting back into it and playing further and further through it. And it is Dark Souls 3. So for the second years in a row, From Software has managed to craft the game that just blew me away. They have officially captured my heart with their last few releases. Bloodborne was my game of the year last year, one of my favorite games I've ever played, and Dark Souls 3 is probably the better made game and the better amalgamation of everything that those guys at From Software have been doing with this series and this world since they created it. Dark Souls, we all know what it is. It's a very deep RPG. It's very action heavy, and it's very strategic. It's great because there are very deep fundamentals, RPG fundamentals within this game, and how you select your class, you pick a weapon and a weapon set that you really, once you kind of find the weapon that works for you, it's almost like you've bonded with it. At least that's how I treated it. And you work to make that weapon and your character the best it can possibly be to keep you as safe as you can possibly be as you traverse the world. With Dark Souls 3, it's the best version of that gameplay that they've created. It's faster than the series has ever been. It's really all about treating every single enemy you come across, as big or as small as it may be, as almost a chess match. And for some people that doesn't work, and I totally get that. But for me and fans of the series, it does work. And I love that sort of battle of wits you have to deal with as you come across an enemy and you got to kind of pace yourself and you move around and how am I going to do this? How am I going to attack? How is he going to attack? How am I going to block or dodge and get my strikes in? And how am I going to overpower this incredibly tough enemy? And the game does that throughout. And what Dark Souls also does that some people also probably don't like, but I do love, is it just sets you in this crazy world and it doesn't tell you anything. I mean, you guys, you get no help in these games. And when you combine the lack of help and, prompts and assists with this crazy difficult combat that people sometimes aren't prepared for, it's very jarring and it turns people off. But when you settle into it and you figure it out, suddenly you start to feel like a badass. And it's that sense of discovery as the world opens up and your understanding of how to traverse through it and how to combat enemies and beat these crazy difficult bosses continues, and you feel rewarded as a player. And that level of strategy and of difficulty, and then your ability to overcome it and feel rewarded for it, is the most euphoric experience that one can almost have in a video game. And I just think it's something really special for those of us who are willing to figure it out and deal with it. It's so hard and it's so counterintuitive to how games are nowadays with all the hand-holding that I would never fault anyone for not being into these games or this series. I really can't fault anyone for that. But like I said, for those of us that really sink into it, it's something really special. The world of Dark Souls 3 is so big. It's so crazy big. And it's so twisty and turny, and they've crafted this world with so many ins and outs to all of the different places that you go to. And the bonfire system was just so perfect for this game. And they did it so great in Dark Souls 3. I mean, I could just gush forever, you guys, but I'm running out of good things to say about it. At the end of the day, it's everything I could have wanted. It's the gameplay experience that still has me going. I have over 70 hours in this game, and I picked it up recently and found even more to do, and I haven't even touched the DLC. So there's a lot of content to enjoy in these games, and Dark Souls 3 is just the best thing that I think From Software has made yet. So, when it comes to 2016, all these great games aside, there's no doubt that the game that blew me away the most and had me the most invested was Dark Souls 3. So there you go, guys. Those are my 10 favorite games for 2016. The games that I think are the 10 best that released this year. I really ran out of positive adjectives to use. It's very hard to talk about 10 games and how much you love them, especially with me and the way I like to describe my gameplay experiences. But it was, like I said, a sneaky good year. I went into this thinking I was going to struggle to find 10 games to include, and turns out that that wasn't the case. So, let's do a couple of honorable mentions real quick. Games I played and really enjoyed but didn't quite make the cut. Recore, The Last Guardian, Trackmania Turbo, and Metroid Prime Federation Force. These are some of the games that I really enjoyed that were close to making the list, but ultimately I couldn't include them, and I settled on the 10 that you heard me discuss. Now, it has to also be noted that, further explaining how good of a year this was in video games, were some games that I really wanted to play but didn't actually get to play. So if these were games that you expected on this list and you're surprised I didn't include them, don't be mad at me, because I'm only one guy, I'm only one gamer, and I can't play anything. And these are some of the games I wanted to play but have yet to get to. Final Fantasy 15, Dead Rising 4, Steep, Dishonored 2, Call of Duty Infinite Warfare, Battlefield 1, and Dragon Ball Z Xenoverse 2. That's like 6-7 games or what have you that I wanted to play and probably would have potentially made this list if I had gotten to them, but I didn't get to play them yet. So anyway, I'm going to end this crazy list. The lesson here is that 2016, even without a strong year from Nintendo, was a really strong year. And it was a year that I had a lot of fun playing all these video games. Very excited for 2017. We've got a brand new Nintendo console right around the corner. We've got a lot of great games coming for the PS4, the Xbox One, and the PC. It's going to be great. A new Zelda, maybe a new Mario, all sorts of good stuff. It's just really going to be a very exciting year, 2017. So that's what's going on. Those are my 10 favorite games, what I think are the 10 best games in 2016. What do you guys think of my list? What games were your favorite? Did they make my list? How would you rank your 10 favorite games of 2016? Share all that stuff below. Thanks, of course, as always, for tuning in, guys. This is Rob of Rule of 2 Review, and I will catch you next time on another video.